And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is a special that I'm doing that was requested by one of my friends over at the Creature Feature channel. And basically, I'm going to review about the Lift 1983 movie that we all saw in a group. And some things came up, so this was supposed to be an after party, which I will still call it that. And my friend, shout out to you, the Crypt Keeper. You could watch this as a rerun if you don't catch this live. And there is some stuff going on earlier, wasn't able to get here, but so this is a special that I will probably not be doing on Saturdays, but it was suggested for this day. Alright, so basically, hello everybody. I'll be doing a review on the Lift 1983 movie. This was supposed to be a after party, but I was a little bit late to the stream because of this other stream that I'm on, and also some other things came up with the cats and stuff like that. There's a sick cat that my family and I are helping out right now, and shout out to him. But anyway, so basically in the future this stream will probably take place on the Fridays because they also have a Friday stream. So I'll certainly be doing the Friday. We'll have that integrated with the regular stream that I do on Friday, because Saturday isn't really the best day for me to do streams, but I will be doing a review on the movie. And let us begin. I hope all of you have been having a great weekend. And also, I'd say a lot of you would be seeing this as a rerun because this is a surprise stream. The other stream I started, there was some stuff showing that I didn't mean to have been shown. Some things were showing I didn't mean to be shown by a little mistake, and I started the stream over. So I will talk about my commentary on this, and I will just read about it, and then that'll be it. It's a very short stream. It's kind of like a live video, in a way. All right. So here I go. I will go to the window that we usually go to. Alright, and I'm about to go to... Alright, shout out to the Spaceship Cats. And I'll talk about the movie we just saw. Me and these other friends just saw. Alright. Okay. So this is called The Lift 1983. It's a very good sci-fi movie, and it gives you a idea about being more cautious about elevators, because it's certainly gives elevators a bad reputation in a way. Because although elevators in some ways may be a little bit more ambient enough, we have this basically right here, that it's quite a monstrous lift. And it's, a lift is like an elevator. Alright, so come on, Google. Okay. Alright. So I will give some commentary about this, and I will do my thing. Here we go. Alright, The Lift is a 1983 Dutch science fiction horror film, written and directed by Dick Maas. The plot concerns an elevator that mysteriously begins to function intelligently on its own, where the victims who go near the elevator or use it are deleted. And I remember when I was seeing it with the chat friends over there at Creature Feature, that basically you go and the person goes by the elevator, and it just seems like the elevator has a mind of its own, and it will cause unimaginable terror to the people, and they certainly have a mind of its own. The movie is quite a lot similar to The Shining, in my opinion. Alright. Those were some seeds that I have that were vocal and made some noises. Alright. So, let's see. All right, everything's working, right? We're just making sure because before having some problems. Okay, before there was a time where I did a stream, and thankfully, shout out to Dwayne Harris. He was in the chat with me, and he was letting me know that it wasn't no sound. So I usually want to double check that there's sound coming in. All right. So an American remake was also directed by Moss, titled Down and released in 2001. In a building in Amsterdam, an elevator inexplicably begins to function alone after a lightning storm causes a power failure and traps four people in the elevator. The elevator falls to the open even after a subsequent power restore, and the passengers almost suffocate. Soon, subsequent malfunctions prove fatal, as an elderly blind man falls to his death. When the elevator doors open to an empty shaft, the building night watchman is decapitated, and a janitor is seemingly burned alive. And although I didn't see the movie right when it started because I was over at this other, over at ABL stream, and because I'm on that podcast, and so I didn't see like the beginning part, but I saw like pretty much the middle through the rest of it. And yeah, it was pretty funny, and they had this scene where the dude who was polishing the floors, and I've done that before with one of my family's rentals where there's like this machine and you could like polish the floors to make it look more shiny, and the dude was just kind of hopping around like a clown, like the main clown in town. And then his boss was telling him to get back to work, and then he was trying to make some vulgar mockery of his boss, but he didn't have the manifolds to actually go and say it to his face. So yeah, that was pretty interesting to see, how people react to stuff, but the elevator certainly puts everybody in their place. Felix Adler, a technician from the elevator company Deta Lifton, begins to examine the electrical system in an attempt to find any anomalies. During the course of several inspections, he meets Miek de Beer, a journalist for the Nieuwe Revue, a local tabloid. And I probably may have butchered the pronunciation of that, but I am kind of just not focusing on pronunciation so much as I'm reading the article. When inspections reveal no apparent problems with the electrical system, Felix becomes obsessed with the continuing malfunctions of the elevator. This has a negative impact on his marriage, as his wife, Saskai, begins to suspect he is having an affair. And, reminds you of the Elvis song Suspicious Minds. When Felix pays yet another visit to the building, he notices a van parked outside from the Rising Sun, a manufacturer of microprocessors for automation and a secret supplier of experimental microprocessors to Delta Lifton. Felix and Mieke, after collecting newspaper clippings about the Rising Sun, try to meet with the company's CEO, who acts nervous and answers abruptly. Miek invites Felix to meet up with her former university professor who specializes in electronics. The professor explains the microprocessor's sensitivity to external factors such as electric fields, magnetic fields, and radioactivity, which undermine the proper functionality. He tells about a computer built years ago which suddenly begins to self-program and went out of control. The next morning, Felix's boss angrily suspends him for his unauthorized visit to the Rising Sun. And remember in the movie they were talking about the scene with the chips, and they kept on saying chips over and over again. and the chat was like, all kinds of crunchy chips, salty chips, and I told my friend the screen name Juan Soto Lay's chips. I was, and then it's like hot chips, and then you have space chips. It could go on and on. That evening, the owners of Delta Lifton and Rising Sun meet to discuss how to stop the elevator's computer processor, which is built from organic material from the leading people. Saskai leaves Felix, taking their children with her, with nothing left to lose. Felix goes to the building to solve the elevator mystery. He discovers that the elevator has a sentient mind. Because I told you all that the elevator has a mind of its own. It's almost like these kind of drones that we see today. When it tries to prevent him from accessing its microprocessor, instead, Felix climbs into the elevator shaft and finds a pulsating box. Inside is a sticky goo covered in a silicon chip. The funny thing is, everybody was making all kinds of jokes about what kind of goo that was. And I remember the chat was just very funny about the jokes they were making about it. I mean, I think that it certainly looked like alien goo. And we were also talking in the chat about how it's a lot like AI, because with AI, you'll have this situation where this artificial intelligence will take over and cause a problem similar to the situation with what we have today and the possibility in the future of it developing and doing something different than it would usually do. So, for instance, it will, the Terminator movie, which is the worst case scenario, it is possible something like that could occur at some point in the future. Why not? But we're not at that point yet, and hopefully that never happens. But so basically, that is the idea about this thing. And in the 80s, obviously they seem to have a premonition about the technology going too far. That's basically what it seems. And now in this time where we're in, especially in this point in 2024, which is the current year, this was streamed, is that in 2024, a lot of this technology has already been implemented and used in society, and we could see a lot of its positive and negative effects. The elevator's heart, as Felix attacks the box with a wrench. The elevator uses its counterweight to knock him off balance. He manages to land on a ledge just below the elevator doors and is rescued by Miek just before the elevator is about to crush him. As Rising Sun's CEO arrives to see that his experiment failed, he pulls out a pistol and fires into the biocomputer to seemingly delete it. The computer then shoots one of the broken cables out to drag him inside the shaft and hangs him. As a shaken Felix Miek walk down the stairs and the elevator's heartbeat continues. And also we have some information about the cast. Hugh Staple as Felix Adler, Willek van Emroy as Miek de Beer, Johnson van Dalsum as Seikai Adlar, Liz, and I'm butchering these names, Snoy Inc. as Vrau and Lift, Whisk, Stiringa as Vrau and Lift, Agnes Schrotch as Winkster, Arniaka as Ensign Dorn as Schuntzerter, Carola Jinxberg's, no, not Berg's, but Burrs von Wink as Maitresse. And we have the critical response. Critical reception for D-Lift has been mixed. Some commended the film for its blending of humor and suspense, while others criticized its execution. Variety, in particular, praised the film writing humor for charcoal gray to pitch black fine suspense, murders, and thrills, and all of it without the gratuitous gore combined of the jaunty entertainment. In Lift, director Dick Moss' first theoretical test, which he passes handsomely. Dennis Schwartz from Ozus World Movie Review rated the film a grade B, stating that the film was played more for a black comedy than for a corporate greed or menace film. Hello, DJ. Good to see you. So, DJ, I want to explain what's going on here. So, basically, one thing, it's good to see you. Welcome. Glad that you're here. And I'll go through this one more time to give you an idea of what was going on in this movie. So, a shout out to my friend, the Crypt Keeper. He suggested to myself and some people in another chat about me doing an after party type stream. And so basically I was there a little bit late, and he did ask about if I was still doing the after party stream. And I don't know if he went to bed or not, but shout out to them. I'm not really too sure exactly, but yeah, shout out to them. And then basically, so in the future, there'll be, not necessarily on Saturday night, but maybe on the Friday streams, we'll have more guests from another channel called Creature Feature that have these movie streams, and when it's more scheduled and correlated better, we'll have some other guests from there to hear. But as I said, so I kept my word to the Crypt Keeper. It's one of the users about doing an after party stream. So I'm talking about the movie that we all saw and making commentary about it, and they can watch it as a rerun if they're not able to come. Because I'm on another show before this one, and there's some commotion with feeding the cats and stuff. So, but anyway, it's all good. So, basically, so the movie is called The Lift. And I'm going to go through this one more time for you all that weren't here to see it. My commentary about it. It's all good. And The Lift is a 1983 Dutch science fiction horror film written and directed by Dick Moss. The plot concerns an elevator that mysteriously begins to function intelligently on its own, where victims who go near the elevator or use it are deleted. And we were watching the movie, and so basically there's these elevators that you see in that picture right there, and they do these untold catastrophic horrors to the people that go by them. So the elevators have like a mind of their own. And the idea behind this is that the elevators are robots, and they're AI type machines, what we would know now as AI. And basically with this AI machine, they will go up, it goes, up and down, but it causes people, like it deletes people and stuff. And you'll have a janitor type person, and like a night watch, a guard type person that watches what's going on. So basically, we were watching it, and there was a lot of funny stuff going on in the chat, and the commentary about it was very good. They had a lot of funny comedic scenes in it, and I think personally it was a good storyline, and it came out in 1983. All right. And it's an American remake and was directed by Moss, titled Down, and released in 2001. All right. And so basically, just where it was located was in Amsterdam. And that's where it takes place, over in the Netherlands. They have a lot of good waffles and very good food over there. There's a user, Robahedral. He's a friend of mine from the Netherlands that I see in the trial chat room. Shout to him. So, in a building in Amsterdam, an elevator inexplicably begins to function alone. So, of course, when something functions alone like that, it causes confusion. Like, is it malfunctioning? Was it not wired right? But no. What's happening is it's like AI evolving to the point where they figure out on their own what to do and to do their own thing. And sort of like a Terminator type situation. And, you know, like I was saying before, so you'll have the Terminator and you have movies like this. And now in 2024, the time that we're doing the stream, this, you know, we're at the end of 2024, but this is the time the stream was, you know, being done. AI has been fully implemented, and there's robotic dogs, there's robots, there's Elon Musk's robotic inventions and things like that. So we're in the age of AI and Chat GPT. So this movie was predicting the what we are in now. So I would say the lift most and not the Terminator. The lift would take place in the future from 1983, maybe this time period possibly, or a time period for a little 20 or 30 years ahead. Like the Terminator, for instance, was set in the future. So the people in the 80s, those are very good movies back in the 80s, by the way. Excellent movies. Those movies are, you know, was predicting what we have now. And of course, at the same time, this is the 80s was when the Macintosh came out. It's when, you know, the PC was coming out. And yes, the people at that time had an idea about this type of technology. Like a computer, for instance, and I've had on my other computer, I could put it on this one, but it was so long ago, they don't have it updated for this type of computer. You would have these, well, you could technically get it with virtual machines, though. But there is this certain thing where you could have an emulator of the vintage Mac from when they first came out. Hello, Kurt Zero. I'm doing a review on the movie The Lift, and it has to do with a group of people I know from another channel that want to have like an after party type stream, and this is like the first test about it. And yeah, so basically what happened was, as I was saying, so you would have this emulator by Sheep Shaver, and then it was black and white, the original Mac, and I'm sure some of you would know what I'm talking about, and that was in a way AI to them. That was a virtual machine to them. You know, that was like an artificial intelligence for that time, so they knew what was going to happen later. So in a building in Amsterdam, an elevator inexplicably begins to function alone. After a lightning storm causes a power failure and traps 4 people in the elevator. The elevator fails to open, even after a subsequent power restore, and the passengers almost suffocate. Soon, the subsequent malfunctions prove fatal as an elderly blind man falls to his death when the elevator doors open to an empty shaft, and the building night watchman is decapitated and the janitor is seemingly burned alive. You're welcome, Zero. You're welcome. I am so happy for you and that you put in the work to get that. Shout out to you. I'm so glad that you're enjoying that game. Felix Adlar, a technician from the elevator company Deta Lifton, begins to examine the electrical system in an attempt to find any anomalies during the course of several inspections. He meets Miek D. Beer, a journalist for D. Nai U Review, a local tabloid, when the inspections reveal no apparent problems with the electrical system. Felix becomes obsessed with the continuing malfunctions of the elevator. This has a negative impact on his marriage as his wife, Saskai, begins to suspect he is having an affair. So basically, malfunctions in the elevator. This has a negative impact on his marriage. It reminds me of Elvis with the Suspicious Minds. When Felix pays yet another visit to the building, he notices a van parked outside from the Rising Sun, a manufacturer of microprocessors for automation and secret supplier of experimental microprocessors to Detta Lifton. Felix and Miek, after collecting newspaper clippings about the Rising Sun, try to meet with the company's CEO, who acts nervous and answers abruptly. Also in this movie, we have a situation where they have, they're talking about the chips. And those that weren't here, I was saying before that we were making jokes about chips. Chips. Not chips, but chips. Like, they're potato chips, they're crunchy chips. I said to my friend Juan, they are Lay's chips, and also they're spicy chips. But they kept saying chips, 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 chips. But they're talking about the computer chips, but it was pretty funny. Chat was hilarious when we were all watching that movie over at Creature Feature. And Curse Hero says, I have a 20k ship and a 40k ship, both with purple sails, level 27. I apologize, I seem to derail you when I'm here. And Zero, I do not mind you doing that. It's okay. I'm glad to hear what you have to say. Purple's my favorite color, by the way. That's the color of the flag of the alien spaceship. Awesome. And also continuing, after collecting newspaper clippings about Rising Sun, tried to meet with the company's CEO, who acts nervous and answers abruptly. Miek invites Felix to meet up with her former university professor who specializes in electronics. The professor explains the microprocessor's sensitivity to the external factors, such as electric fields, magnetic fields, and radioactivity, which undermine the proper functionality. He tells about a computer built years ago which suddenly began to self-program and went out of control. The next morning, Felix's boss angrily suspends him for his unauthorized visit to the Rising Sun. There is a scene in this movie where this janitor was polishing the floor, but he was dancing around like a clown, like the main clown in town. And basically, what happened was, when he would go and do that, his boss came in, and he looks like his boss. He seemed like some low IQ, like caveman, and he was telling him to keep on working and not to slack off. And then he made some vulgar gesture behind his back, but he didn't have the bravery to say it to his face. But he told him he could leave if he wanted to, but he doesn't. He's not able to do that. So it was pretty funny. Then he goes by the elevator, and all hell breaks loose because these elevators have a mind of their own. They went and they go and delete people that go by them, and they open and close by themselves. And there's a lot of humor in this movie, so it has quite of an eclectic mixture of different ways of expressing their cinematic talent in this movie. I thought it was very good. The chat did too. And I said I didn't see the beginning part because of stuff with the cats and things with the other stream that I was on, but I saw it halfway in the movie, and yeah, it was pretty cool. The owners of Delta Lifton and Rising Sun meet to discuss how to stop the elevator's computer processor, which is built from the organic material from killing people. What's up, Duke? Good to see you. And Duke, this has to do with the creature feature group. Because there's about, and which in the future we'll have more of them. We have them here, but we'll have it's like an after party type thing from that stream to this stream. That we're, myself and some others are getting together, and over time we'll get it scheduled and stuff like that with the chat. And yeah, shout out to you, Duke. I'm glad to see you. You got clothes. You got the purple clothes. And your clothes are rare clothes. That's really great. And you found the purple hat. That's awesome. Yeah, shout out to you. Swasky. So in this movie, Duke, that I saw a creature feature, it's called The Lift. And also another shout out to the Crypt Keeper for suggesting this type of after party stream. Shout out to him. Leaves Felix taking their children with her. With nothing left to lose, Felix goes to the building to solve the elevator mystery. He discovers that the elevator has a sentient mind. When he tries to prevent him from accessing its microprocessor, instead Felix climbs into the elevator shaft and finds a pulsating box. Inside is a sticky goo covering a silicon chip. The elevator's heart, as Felix attacks the box with a wrench, the elevator uses its counterweight to knock him off balance. He manages to land on a ledge just below the elevator doors and is rescued by Miek just before the elevator is able to crush him. As the Rising Sun's CEO arrives to see that his experiment failed, he pulls out a pistol and fires into the biocomputer to seemingly delete it. The computer then shoots one of the broken cables out to drag him inside the shaft and hangs him. As a shaken Felix and Miek walk down the stairs, the elevator's heartbeat continues. So then, in this movie, basically, you have this elevator that has a mind of its own, and basically, what he did is, well, not what he did, what it's like an it. So it's basically a situation where you have these elevators that are manipulated by AI to do things on its own, and it decides to go and delete people. And they have some funny comedic scenes in it. Hugh Staple as Felix Adler, Willik von Amory as Miek and D. Bear. I'm going to be kind of butchering some of these names. Josine von Dalsum as Saskai Adlar. Liz Noi Inc. as Rawu in the lift, Whisk Stringa as Rawau in the lift, Angus Shutch as Wickerster, Arncha as Elsendorn as Schon Zutzer, Carla Jispers von Wink as Matresse. So those are the people. I may have butchered some of the names, but that is how names worked in the movie. The people, the players, the cast of the movie. Critical response. Critical reception for D-Lift has been mixed. Some commended the film for its blending of humor and suspense, while others criticized its execution. A variety in the particular praised the film writing humor from charcoal gray. Thank you, Duke. Thank you. To pitch black, the fine suspense murders and the thrills, and all of it without Gartotius gore, combined for a jaunty entertainment. The Lift director Dick Moss, first theoretical test which he passes handsomely. Dennis Schwartz from Ozos World Movie Reviews rated the film grade B, stating that the film was played more for a black comedy than for a corporate greed or menace film. Janet Maslin of New York Times was highly critical of the film, calling it remarkably tension-free, and criticized its execution as being too tepid. Maslin further stated, "In the hands of the right filmmaker, of course, even Toaster can be terrifying, but Mr. Mass leaves the elevator's potential fine dishness largely unexploited." The Time Out London gave the film a negative review, writing, the movie is shafted by confusions of scripts and execution, neither of or which match up with the original good idea. TV Guide awarded the film 2 of the 5 stars, stating that the film was surprisingly effective, while also stating that it was not particularly scary. All right. I would give this film 5 stars. It was very funny and also very scary. And I remember it's like you had these scenes when it would go and the cords would go and strangle the person. They had the worker. He was like going. No, what I mean by worker, he had like his like toolbox and all of his equipment, and he went up inside the shaft of the elevator, and then it's like these cords came and strangled him. It's like they weren't going to let him get away with that, and it's like they had a mind of their own. And basically, it was led to his demise, and he got deleted. And also, there's a rat that got deleted by it. And yeah, it just anybody that went by it, it would cause deletion, and they would open and close and have a mind of their own. And we know in this modern time, there's suspicions of AI and Chat GPT, and the technology getting too advanced to the point where they might do things nefarious. Not that maybe some things may be happening now that are nefarious, but basically that. It's great in the 80s. Of course, as I said, with the Macintosh and with the PC. Well, the Macintosh is a PC, but okay, so more specifically, there's Microsoft and there's Apple, and there's all these different companies and computers that came out, and they were aware of this type of technology that was coming. And the GUI that was seen in the elevator, the chat was making hilarious jokes about that movie. It was a really funny chat. D lift, and then right there, that is the poster. That was the girl in the movie. Scared. Duke says it's a Dutch movie. Dutch is a similar to German. I speak German. Well, that's cool, Duke. Awesome. My name, you probably already know, is Hansel, and pronounced Hansel from Hansel and Gretel. Because my whole name's German. And my mom's family, they German ancestry. I have it on both sides, though. But, like, specifically the identity part of the name comes from my mom's side. Yeah, this is the iconic scene with the girl by the elevator, and this also reminded me of the Shining. Also, you're Polish German. Awesome, awesome. Yeah, shout out to you. That's cool. And also, so basically, yeah, this is another, kind of like another version of the poster, and it shows the girl seeing it because they had a scene where they had the girl, and they would just they would open and close. They would just open and close the elevator doors. It was very taking. It looks like this is like a remake from 2020. That's pretty cool. And that's a remake from 2020. Yeah, it's so interesting. A thing about the remakes, it's so interesting to see like how in our modern times the way they had the lighting, the way they had the the angles and stuff were so different than how they have it now. It's interesting to see the cinematography from different time periods. 1983. Yeah, so this is a part of them. That looks like to me the newer version, but you see, there's like a person that's like kind of distorted that's there, you know, and basically, there's something about the elevator that's paranormal and also has to do with AI. And yeah, so this is a scene basically where the guy with the toolbox was going in there, and it led to his demise. Yeah, that one. That's when the scene where the guy had his head stuck in it, and yeah, the elevators were deleting people. It's like you never knew how gory and how much these elevators want to start plotting. And also kind of reminds me of a Frankenstein type creature as well. And so basically, with Frankenstein reminds me of AI or some sort of thing like that, like a robot. That seems like so. Even back in that time, they had an idea of what was going to be coming in the future. That movie, the original Frankenstein from back then, was very very good, very good. It was a very good movie. And Gene Wilder was hilarious in his version of it. It was nice watching that as a teenager coming up. Of course, reruns of it. Yeah, this is like another poster interpretation of it. And it's like somebody's head falling off because, yeah, that's what it does. Head falls off. And I like in the movie how they're talking about the computer chips. Because back in that time, the chips that we have are much different than they are back then. And they had to explain the audience about chips because back in that time, people were just getting familiar with computers. All right, we're going to see how this goes. I'm going to read a review to the movie that somebody else made. So I gave my review about it, and I think it was a very good movie. And I gave my commentary on it. And also now I will be reading this other review about it. All right. So here's the review. Elevators always get a bad rap. You never see a movie dedicated to escalators unless it's intentionally humorous. And there hasn't been a film completely set on a bunch of stairs. Those steps have been featured in iconic scenes. The Lift is a Dutch horror movie that features a very pissed off elevator bent on harming anyone who decides to take an unexpected ride. And it beats M. Night Shyamalan's The Devil's Punch by more of the 20 years. Way before home computers, 1983, late 80s, people might have had them. Thank you, Duke. Thank you. And absolutely, my point is that with the computers, like, it wasn't like how it is now. So it's just also a very cool time period to see how people were just getting to know technology. And there's old computers my family has from like the 90s, and I've seen the ones in the 80s too, the late 80s rather. Yeah, it's very interesting to see how it evolved over time. The 80s had great movies. Great movies. You're 21 in 83. Awesome. Awesome. I'm sure it's pretty cool. You grew up in that time. The film's plot doesn't really get more complex than what I've already laid out in that brief summary. And it's surprising that The Lift is actually able to get a full length film out of such a weak storyline, this person says in their review. Felix, an elevator technician, begins working on an elevator that seems to have lost its air conditioning. A part was trapped in the night before, and they almost died of heat exhaustion, meaning there is something seriously wrong with the air circulation of the building. Felix is a whiz at fixing elevators. Apparently, and everyone is impressed with his work. Hello, Delight. Welcome. Good to see you. Yeah, the movie was crazy. Absolutely. I've been ranting about it, and it's like basically, you know, you have these elevators that are these possessed elevators that are basically working on AI. It's basically what chat was saying and what they're hinting to at the movie, and how you have this situation where these elevators had some very devious thoughts to cause complete chaos to anybody that comes by. And the chat was so like it was so funny, especially when they're talking about the chips, like potato chips, the crunchy chips. The dude, he kept saying chips over and over again. And continuing that, and I liked and there was some comedic scenes in it that were pretty funny also. And I'm reading someone's review about it at the same time giving my commentary on it. So, elevator technician begins working on the elevator that seems to have lost its air conditioning. A party was trapped in it the night before, and they almost died of heat exhaustion, meaning there is something seriously wrong with the air circulation in the building. Felix is a whiz at fixing elevators, apparently, and everyone is impressed with his work. Until more people begin to die in the elevator, apparently, and everyone is impressed with his work. Until more people begin to be deleted in the elevator in strange circumstances like a beheading when the doors slam shut for a fall down to the shaft when no elevator comes to pick the blind passenger up. Yes, very morbid scenes. Yes, Dutch humor. Yes. Involved with Felix is a newspaper reporter named Miek, who wants to cover the story for the tabloids. The grisly nature of the elevator deaths are attractive to her, and they soon begin to investigate the cause of the elevator's grumpiness, probably the processing chips inside the elevator, which could become unstable and reprogram themselves to do what they want. And it's apparent that the company that develops the chips has something to hide. I agree, Delight. Absolutely. When the body fell through the roof of the elevator, no one was ready for the. It's like, yeah, it was really, really intense, and I think that there's a lot of jump scares in it, and there's a lot of suspense. Is the right word, suspense. And I think it's so interesting with movies because there is a remake in 2020, and the way the lighting is and the quality of the film is so much different than the 83 version. It's like they seem like they used brighter lights back then in filming, and they use more darker lights now in certain scenes. I think it's just very interesting. So if they made the movie today, it would have been totally different looking than the movie now. Like Mission Impossible, the TV show that came out in the 60s, it now the Mission Impossible movies that succeeded those movies, totally different type of filming and video quality. I always imagine if that those movies in the 80s and the 60s and 70s were filmed with our type of technology, it's so interesting to see how everything would have looked. It seems like a drab. This person in their says in their opinion, it seems like a drab and boring premise of a movie. The person says in their review, but the lift is surprisingly adept at creating tense situations. Perhaps it is the way that the scene and the elevators are shot. The claustrophobia of the situation reaches out of the audience as well, and many of the entrapments are uncomfortable to watch, especially the finale when Felix attempts to disable the elevator entirely. Yeah, and the light says they shoot them digitally now. Digitally now. Yeah, absolutely. And basically, he was in the character was extremely courageous and brave to do that. When you're fighting some unknown psychotic elevator and they're not going to know what's going on, and you just got to do what you have to do. And basically, there's a part where you go and have all the pieces come together that something's not right here. And I like how they were referencing AI, because that's what we have now. Like, you could have an elevator in the future at some point do something like that. There's been instances when technology does some strange things. And, like, there's these algorithms. Like, you'll see algorithms all the time in your, that give us information and ads and stuff. And they're all communicating with each other. These different AI mechanisms and algorithms, they communicate with each other. And they're getting more and more intelligent and advanced constantly. And the foresight about this is so intriguing. Ah, movies like Terminator 2, they shot scenes in miniature. Yeah, and also, yeah, Terminator 2, that was a very good movie. And I like the Terminators, I like all of them. And basically, the Terminator is talking about the future date when they would have this apocalyptic conflict with the machines and the humans. And like in China, for instance, they have their AI, their robots trained with guns. It's like these people, I'm glad they warned us with those movies, but it's certainly the modern day society. We're seeing the effects of these type of machines that can be used for good or bad. Yes, T2 does hold up. Absolutely. Yes. And for instance, there's like Pirates of the Caribbean that talk about on the show a lot because of the game. And our friend in the chat, Zero, he has been playing the pirate game that I play. And the CGI from Pirates of the Caribbean is the best. And it's nearly 20 years since Pirates of the Caribbean. No, wait. So, yeah, like 20 years since Pirates of the Caribbean came out. And with Davy Jones, that movie, it's nearly 20 years. And the CGI holds up in that movie very well. It's amazing. In the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and also in the Terminator movie as well, which is much farther back. So some of the movies did very well holding up through the decades. Now, the Avengers movies, the CGI has been criticized in those movies that they don't hold up as well. Because they're saying people think Disney just want to get movies out there, and then that was it. They just want to go and throw just movies out without putting artistic work in it. You can admire the artistic work in the way these movies are, the way they're shot, the type of quality, and the costumes, and how everything's put together. And especially the really older movies we've seen, and how they'll have this, extravagant to the finest detail, the utensils, the chandeliers, the curtains, the tiniest detail. And I think it's good for movies to continue that legacy of putting the artistic effort into it and not just like putting something together just to make some money alone. Because in the long run, it'll hold up better by putting more artistic effort into things. I agree, Duke. I think it looks better. The Terminator 2 looks better than special effects today. I agree. Because when I see a Terminator, it looks like it was, it could have been filmed in this time period. I agree with y'all on that. Also, the Titanic movie, that one holds up well too. Because there's things that was filmed in '97 or '96 that do not, like, they look like older movies, but the James Cameron Titanic looks like it was filmed yesterday. Like, James Cameron's the one that did the Terminator, so yeah, he's a very good director and filmmaker. I just watched Avengers films again. They still look good. Yes, yes, I agree. They do look good, and it was just with the CGI compared to the pirate movies. Some people feel that Disney was kind of slacking on it, and it wasn't like the same as a pirate movie. But the movies still look good, and of course, it's my opinion about it. And like, I'm not being too critical about the Avengers movies. I do think they look really good. I do think they look really good. But like, I can see and admire the way they did CGI in Pirates. And people are saying, like, in the comment sections about how they may not be doing the work they did back then in the modern ones. But as I said, they still look good though. I do agree with that as well. Yeah. Yes. And I'm like, of course, the same guy, the same creator that did the Titanic did Terminator also. Now, there's theories that Zero was telling me about how Jack Dawson was a time traveler that was making sure that the Titanic would sink, and that he was to go by Rose to bring her on the deck to, well, getting ahead of myself here. He was there to go and bring the people, to bring Rose from deleting herself off the ship, because they would have had to go around to look for her, and then to bring her by the where the iceberg was about to hit. So he's thought to be a time traveler, and it's a conspiracy theory about the Titanic movie, which I think is interesting because James Cameron did the science fiction movies a lot. Yeah, but of course, yeah, he's a very good film director and filmmaker. He went down to the Titanic and he didn't implode. He didn't get a tin can. And he went down deep into the Mariana Trench. And also, that's really cool that he had those skills, because a lot of people, didn't like do the things that he did. But shout out to the other filmmakers from those time periods; they did good too. Duke said, "I never saw Avengers movies, but then again, I never saw Star Wars. When CGI is bad, it looks really bad." Absolutely, absolutely. Because I saw these videos of comparing the CGI, and basic basically what happened with the CGI, it looks horrible. It looks real fake. It looks so cringe. It's like it's trying to exist, but it can't. And it's like, oh, this is getting me into a video game. Okay. There is this video game, which we're still talking about this and everything, but there's this video game called Big Rigs, and the Angry Video Game Nerd did a review on it, and I learned about his different comebacks and stuff. And man, it was so horrible. It's a CGI game, and the man went through the in the game, you could go through the mountains, you could go through the buildings, you could go off the map into the middle of nowhere, and then you could fall down, and it just goes like it's, up and down, like it's jerking something. And that game was like so horrible. And I remember in class we were watching it. My friend was pull out his phone. We were watching the reaction to it, and that's my reaction to when I see horrible CGI everywhere. That's how I react. I'm just like, with the CGI that's horrible, it's trying to exist, but it can't. Sarah, you got your messages. Thank you. I'll respond to you later. Sarah, I'm glad that you're able to come here. So it was shout out to the Crypt Keeper. He suggested that we have an after party about after we watched creature feature movies, and I got there a little bit later, and there may have been some mix up of timing, but my timing of going there and all. But basically, as I said, I kept my word, and here we are. And we will have the others here on the other after parties in the future. And then we have Sarah says, "Hey, Captain, salute to you, Sarah." And Delight says, "Like CGI you see in Fast and the Furious movies." Yes, yes, I agree. I agree. And I don't want to be, too harsh on the Avengers movies. I like the Avengers movies; they're pretty good. But basically, right, it looks very cheap. I made better movies on my phone with my flashlight than the cheap CGI movies. Disney was the one that shut down the Pirates of the Caribbean Online. And Zero had to correct me because I keep calling it the Pirates of the Caribbean Online. But it's called The Legend of the Pirates of the Caribbean Online. That's the new version. The old version was just Pirates of the Caribbean Online. So I was this entire year, all the years I've been playing it, since 2020, I've been calling it the wrong name. Blame the Alien Man. So continuing this review of the movie, and Sarah, I will I'll explain to you, since you weren't here, about a description about what the movie was about that we saw earlier. But continuing with this review someone did about the movie, there's also staples and daring qualities. This might either be due to his presence on screen or the personality of the voice actor that dubbed him, but I found Felix to be immensely likable character throughout, and his drive to fix the elevator shows just how willing he is to work at his job. It might be foolish in a sense, and it causes him more than a few personal problems as well, but it's something that makes his character more three-dimensional. And I got it a little bit wrong again. Thank you, Zero. The Legend of Pirates Online. And Sarah says, I got this and the movies that rocked. Yes, I understand what you mean. I can rest in my golden years, LOL, listening while cooking. Okay, Sarah, I'm glad you're listening while cooking. Yeah, the 80s were great. I was not there, obviously. I was close to the time period, but I wasn't quite there. Like, as I said, I was the second to last year of the 90s. I came into this world. So I had 1 year in the 90s before it was over. But I have friends that are 2, 3 years older than me that were there longer than I was. And I think about through a whole century, people wrote 19, etc. Or it was 80, 70, 80, 90. But then it was my time coming up, it was the 04, 01, then the teens, the 2010s. But now, in the 20s, we're back in that certain similar type of decades. So it's very fascinating to come up in this unique type of time period of the turn of the century. And Sarah was talking about when she saw Star Wars in theaters when it came out. That's so cool. My friend Ellie, she's someone I know from the Law and Crime chat, from the trial streams. Ellie also saw it in theaters as well. Well, it was at a drive-in theater. And basically, it was, so that's very historical. That's very cool for those that were able to be in this time period to see these type of movies. Now, in my opinion, I think the early 2000s was more similar to those 2 decades than the preceded decades of the 2010s and this other time period too. I do think that. And Duke missed out. He didn't see it. And continuing the last part of this review, the multiple elevator killings in the lift tend to break up in monotony of the investigation, to whereas the lift could have followed the investigative reporter as she tries to unravel the mystery. The movie is split between scenes of the elevator attacking others, Felix attempting to fix the elevator, and many nerve racking shots, and him and Miak exploring the devious underbelly of Miss corresponding production. There aren't too many lulls of the film besides a few dull sequences, according to this person's review. He prefers Dirty Harry movies. Or Dirty Dan. Oh, Dirty Dan. I remember when my friends in the hood were talking about his dudes telling me, he's like, no, you're Dirty Dan. No, I'm Dirty Dan. No, you're Dirty Dan. It had to do with a SpongeBob scene. There's also a sense of humor afoot in the film, something that might appeal to those purvorious of black comedy. While not entirely intentional, a few chuckles are interspersed here and there. I mean, when you have an elevator targeting and attacking people, there are bound to be a few instances the audience will find funny. It's really not the film's fault. Some might just see it as the lift doing its job well. And as I said, I thought the movie was crazy. It was pretty cool. You know, I like crazy movies. I thought it was interesting. And that's, you see, so those that are like listening, this is like the person, he's intelligently putting his head inside between the elevator doors. Because, you know, that's something that a smart person would do. And then he is about to be guillotined. And King Louis the 16th, right there. More question, and also according to this person's review of the movie, the more questionable though is the conclusion to the movie, which leaves a few loose ends hanging. The biggest of all, the dwindling relationship between Felix and his wife. When she finds out that Felix has been seeing Miak, he doesn't even bother to let her know that it's all misunderstanding, and that they've been working on the elevator case throughout, and the end of the film indicates that it is not Felix and his wife who have a strong connection, but he and Miak. But this isn't explored well enough to warrant a significant interest in the love lives of the two, and it simply makes the viewer question Felix's commitment to his wife and vice versa. Yeah, because his wife in the movie was real suspicious of him, but it's like when you got these psychotic elevators, it's, you know, they just are going to cause a bunch of trouble. Like, people don't always understand the supernatural elements and things sometimes. They left that guy hanging in the elevator shaft. Yeah, yeah. And yeah, I remember that. And it was just basically, they just left him to be deleted. And I remember you were joked out, and the rest of the chat was joked out. And yeah, they just left him hanging there. They're like, nah, fam. Good riddance to you. Oh, it looks like something's cooking, or the coffee's about to be ready or something. And they went and left him. So much for comradeship. Nah, they left him for dirt. And he was scared. But the lift is surprisingly vibrant piece of work. And it handles a lackluster plot well enough to sustain its entire running time. It's obvious that this time the lift won't rise up any cult status according to the thing after its remake of the US viewers in 2001 under the name Down the Shaft. But it's an older film that hasn't plummeted multiple stories after its release. It holds up to over time an entertaining movie with an in it plot. And so basically, a scene that I thought was crazy was like you had a part where he was polishing the floor, and his like boss came over, and the guy's just like a cliche moron, and he's like, "Get back to work and stop dancing around," because the dude thought he was the main clown in town. And then he went and was just making these vulgar references behind his back, but he didn't have the manifolds to go up to his face and say, you know, you got to go and say it to his face or quit and do something else. But, and I've done that before. It was like one of my grandparents' rentals, and it was like, I've used it wasn't a machine, but it was like the handheld thing. You just kind of go back and forth and polish the floor. It's, but yeah, he was just being, it was funny. All right, this is a scene from the new version, and it shows the clown getting his head chopped off. Oh yeah, the guys at Creature Feature are very nice. Absolutely, shout out to them. And because of the Crypt Keeper, the user of the Crypt Keeper, he was the one that suggested this after party. Because of the Crypt Keeper, we're here doing a stream. I usually don't do streams on Saturday. And I'm thankful for a shout out to the channel in the chat. And also, and this is another scene of the 3 elevators. Yes, I'm a manifold. And yeah, what I want to say is that he said, "You're a manifold." That's the new word. That's a new word. Right, we're looking at this other review of the movie. And also, before I begin, how we could be in contact. All right, Zero. So I remember you were mentioning that before, and I didn't mention to you that I have an email on my About section of my channel that you can email me, and we can communicate there. And I would like you to email me from there, from the email from my About section. We will get in contact. We will certainly do that. And also the email is in the About section of my channel to contact me. All right, horror movie review. The Lift, 1983. The Lift, also known as Die Lift, being a Dutch horror film, was directed and written by Dick Maas. It sees a lift seemingly gain intelligence and start deleting anyone that goes near or uses it. And also the person says in their review, yes, this is a horror movie about a killer lift. A lift like in Titanic, they talked about a lift. It is not a horror comedy, nor does it have slapstick or take tongue-in-cheek approach. The Lift is a film that takes itself deadly serious. The only laughs coming from some of the poor voice dubbing. And that's apart from the newer version of it. It's that grabs the attention of the opening scene as four partying people get trapped inside the sentient lift. At first, they don't worry too much about it, choosing to continue the party in the lift, but as it begins to heat up, they begin to panic. In the end, they all survive just, and they have part of the scene there. This sees Felix, a technician from the elevator company Deta Lifton, called in. He looks over the electrical system and attempt to find any issues, but finds none. Because basically, and as I said, this is like a precursor of the AI, what's going to happen, what could happen with AI. And you have a situation with this supernatural phenomena that if you look through everything, it looks fine. Another precursor about it is in the future, if there's a problem with AI machines, they'll look and see everything's okay. And that's the scary part. Because everything's fine with it, that's not too good. But there's something has to be wrong. Thank you, Zero. I got your message. Thank you. Yeah, shout out to you, Zero. And Sarah says, you inspired, I inspired husband to rent a movie on Prime. Oh, well, enjoy a movie review night, Alien. Take care, guys and gals. And Cynix. Psionics. Yeah, oh, okay, Sarah. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. I'm so glad I went live tonight. And it was a lot of it was very tedious to do this. It was very tedious, but here we are. I'm a man of my word. I say we're going to do the stream. I told him, I did it, and here we are. This sees Felix Adelar Hube Staple, a technician from the elevator company Deta Lifton, called in. He looks over the electrical system in an attempt to find any issues, but finds none. It's put down to nothing more than a freak accident related to a recent storm. That is until other people start to have accidents and get deleted. So basically, it reminds me of Frankenstein. Because I was mentioning Frankenstein before, and it reminds me of the Terminator. It reminds me of a type of AI robot, a rogue robot. And it's very fascinating when she wrote that, of this putting the different parts of the body together to make a new person. But now we have, like with technology, you could put the different types of code together to create a new thing that can be used for good or bad. An elderly blind man falls to his death when the elevator doors open to an empty shaft. The night watchman is decapitated by the elevator door, and a janitor is snarled in the shaft. The body count begins to rise, and on one can understand what is going on. Yeah, and that's like some dude. He looks like Nosferatu, and he's just kind of like in a trance, scared. You know, something paranormal about the elevator. It reminds me of The Shining, as I said. It reminds me of The Shining. Felix becomes obsessed with the lift, something that affects his family. He knows something isn't right with it and is determined to find out what it is. The biggest flaw to the lift is obvious from the movement it starts. It's a lift, it can't move. The chase or attack, it relies on people going near it, a problem that could be solved instantly. Simply put, it's not threatening in any way, even if Mas attempts to be creative with it. And yeah, that, as I said, a lot very similar to The Shining. And you see like the girl, and she's like chilling, but they just open and close all on their own. and we got the. It's just my mouse is being kind of goofy, but anyway, there isn't much in the way of gore. Much of the way of gore, but what there is pretty memorable, particularly the decapitation and the shaft and the final hanging scene. Each bloody scene has an 80s feel about it, especially when you add the occasional flash of nudity. This has to do with the newer one. Nothing hardcore, but out of place. And you have this. So we are all adults here. We have this scene where we have some spicy stuff going on. She looks kind of like the cat lady from the Twilight Zone. So there's a scene where this crazy lady that is stalking this guy around, and in this amusement park, and the dude's tripping, and he's talking about his story, and that lady looks just like that actress from that time period. As I said, things are so differently filmed than they were back then. You thought of The Shining as well. Yes. Eventually, the film delves into a mad science kind of horror with an explanation about chips and computer programs. It's fairly mundane, but does result in a decent finale. Ultimately, for a horror about a murderous sentient lift, you just want a bit more oomph to things. Let's see if there's any more in this review. Shout out to the author, Carl Fisher. Shout out to him. This is a great read, cool website. And this website didn't do an apocalyptic destruction to the connection or anything. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And also the scene where they had the goo. You know, that was some alien looking goo, and chat was making like, okay, it was some other type of goo. And that was very interesting and mysterious to see in the movie. And also, I think it was a good balance with humor, with people just being hilarious. Like they left the guy for being to be deleted, and he just had him in the elevator. And they keep opening and closing and causing people to be deleted and stuff. And this girl is just chilling, just looking at him. Yeah, it's a bunch. It's a roller coaster. It's a very crazy movie. And yeah, the creature feature fam is awesome. And Toronto John, he's cool people. He's one of the people I talked there. Also Janet Kraft and a couple of different ones there. Yeah, and Toronto John, like, he'll talk about all these thousands of records and CDs he has that he collected over the decades. And he was talking tonight about some more of the stuff that he has from the Apocalypse movie. And he was suggesting that's one of the ones I could look at. And the soundtrack, it has Wagner in it, The Ride of the Valkyries. And that's a very classic one right there. And yeah, I've learned a lot from him, and also from him and Janet Kraft about the different types of cameras. And it's so cool how the cameras evolved over time. You just have it on a phone now. You still have the other types of cameras, but you have everything on a phone. It's really just very intriguing how things evolved over time. And it's nice talking to people that were in these different time periods. Because I'm coming up in an extremely advanced era of AI and digital. Everything's all digital now. When I was coming up as a kid, though, there was DVDs and CDs and cassette tapes. Now, records, I saw that in music class a little bit older, but I knew of their existence. But yeah, it kind of blows my mind. Like, you're like watching TV, but you could talk to a streamer and talk to people over the place. So or overall with the technical advancements is so fascinating. And yeah, yeah, the goo was ew. Yes, it was gross, gross. Yeah, and that's Felix. And this is the that's a scene. A dude was just hanging in there because he was about to get. He's about to drop. It's just basically the elevator was having a really bad day. The elevator was not happy to exist, and it was not. It was so annoyed at the humans that were there. If anything, it's like the electrical. So it's like this electrical storm comes and causes these elevators to do this. It's like it reminds me of War of the Worlds a little bit with the zapping of the lightning would strike the ground and the aliens would come up. And if anything, you could say it was possessed by aliens. Felix looks like Luigi. Yes, Felix does look like Luigi. Fascinating how they have a movie with a similar looking guy to Luigi after the event that happened. And I think a lot of wild stuff is happening over here, Delight, regarding the Luigi situation. The thing with Luigi, you got like a split opinion about it. And also, the big thing is the drones. And it seems that people think there may be some surveillance from the U.S. government is conducting some sort of an experiment where they're trying to monitor stuff that's going on. Some people think it's foreign enemies, and also a few people think it could be the extraterrestrials. But, to me, they look like earthling crafts. And basically, understood, Delight. Understood. Yeah, so that is a lot of stuff that's going on over here. Yes, we are crazy. You are correct about that. And because I think, as I said, they to me look like earthling machines. Because I like talking about aliens and stuff, but anything's, possible, and as they say, but it seems to be that they have these crafts that are just monitoring things that are going on because something must be happening. And then you have people coming up with these different theories. Could the aliens be disguised as the drones? But somebody that was from the military called in earlier, one of the other podcasts I was on, and he was retired, and he was saying that the drones are surveillance from the U.S. government because there's something going on they're monitoring. I guess they said in the news what they're doing, so whoever they're trying to find or figure out what's going on is going to hide something. That's, maybe why. But yeah, we are very crazy over here. That's true. Especially with Luigi, there is a DJ playing, and they're showing all of his pictures, and like what the people are saying that they're proud of what he did. It just, man, it's just these people, it's just wild stuff going on over here, as they say, the Wild West. Over in California and stuff in general, you have a situation where I remember now. In California, you have a situation where people, when the Dodgers won the game, the people went and they looted and they burned everything down. Well, they didn't burn anything down, but they were looting. Well, that was before. Last year, there was some dude they burnt. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. They did burn a bus. It was horrible. So, Delight, they burned a bus, a beautiful, nice bus that wanted to just bring people to point A to point B. They spray painted it, and they set it on fire, and they took pictures in front of it. It looked like a burnt whale. And the other time, you had these people that were jumping on top of the bus. They burnt down. It's just, yeah, it's crazy stuff happening out here. There is a live stream on Earth TV, I think, that's aimed at the New Jersey night sky, and they had over 9K watching. Wow. Wow, that's something. Yeah, that's something, yeah. And in Luigi's manifesto, he was talking about fighting the machine, and it's like what happens is they replace the CEO with somebody else, and if there was some sort of a problem at that with the healthcare system, all they did, well, you could get something done more legally, more diplomatically than that. But of course, I'm not saying like if you're in a situation where you have to defend yourself or something, you have to fight. But that these people are just going off the deep end, and yeah, I'm. Oh, so Delight, one of the people they're doing donuts in the street, and they were lighting firecrackers and fireworks, and they kept blowing up stuff, like the fire everywhere. They're just blowing up firecrackers after they won a game. That was just a few minutes before you saw me on Creature Feature. Well, okay. Thank you for letting me know. What and yeah, and Damon over in Cali, he took a video of a drone that he saw. They're everywhere. Because this is what happened to Light. They were telling us about the drones and how there's nothing to worry about, but they don't know what it is or where it comes from. And my friend ABL was like, how do you not know what it is, but it's not a danger? It's like, come on now. You've seen the vids. Okay. Yes. Yes. And I think, like, yeah, the whole world in Delight. Another thing is the whole world is watching America. And it's just craziness. It's just a lot of craziness. And Delight, there's these trials that I'm watching are crazy. It's like you have recently the YSL trial where they had the corrupted DA, and they were showing pictures of these black people, they're rappers, and they're just hanging out, and it has to do with RICO, which RICO has to do with drug charges of doing like gang stuff with distributing and selling drugs, but that has nothing to do with anything. And they were found innocent. And then you have this other guy that deleted his wife and cut her up. Then you have this other lady that beat her and mutilated her child. Yeah, just a bunch of craziness over here. Yeah, right on. Yeah, so basically, with this elevator scene, he's opening them all up, and I like how they all open at the same time. That's something very eerie. I remember, like, when you go into an elevator, one opens and closes. They don't all open sync to each other. Yes, yes. RICO or for organized crime, right? Like the mafia in a crime syndicate. But it's like, people just in a picture hanging out. That picture in itself doesn't mean anything. And it was so crazy in the chat. That chat was wild. And so in Luigi, you probably know this, Delight, already, but Luigi was saying how, which you probably know this already. You know this already. He was saying that it's an insult to the American people. And it's these people, it's wild. Oh, Delight, I was watching a briefing about when they caught him at the McDonald's. And there's this situation where they caught him in the McDonald's, and they stood outside the McDonald's they caught him at, and they're making a news review about it. And then this other thing, his attorney's a goof. His attorney reminds me of the Penguin from Batman, and he was bumbling around, and he didn't know what was going on, really. And it was so goofy to watch. And Jesse Weber, the host of the Law and Crime, he said, "This is the attorney." And then the people start laughing in the room with them, because it's like you'll think of something, and like the host or somebody in the video is like, "Is this real? Like, come on." It's a big clown show. So there's a lot of clown shows happening over here. The United Circus States of America. And so basically, oh my goodness. And then they had this incident with Ashley Bayfield. She deleted her husband. And I was watching a couple months ago with the gang, with the chat gang, and this situation occurred where some troll came in the chat and was saying they knew something was going on in the room, and the proceedings of the jurors being in the jury room. So there's a jury deciding if the person is guilty or not. Yes, absolutely, Delight. Yes, indeed. Okay, Zero. Thank you for giving me that information, and I will give that to you. I don't work on the game as much as I used to, but I'll certainly show you what I've done in the game so far. Okay, Zero. Thank you, and good night to you. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, Delight. So basically what happened was so a troll came in and was saying they had information from a juror that was in the deliberation room, so which is illegal. So what happened was her attorney was trying to say that this was a reason to have a mistrial. And one of my friends was caught in the snapshot, but she didn't do anything. It was just the troll was the one in question, but she just happened to be in the screenshot, and she was freaking out. And Kathy and I had to calm our friend down, and explain to her that she's not in trouble. None of us are in trouble. It was just the person in question. And I told G that she's an attorney that lives in New York. And I told her, remember, you're you know the law. Okay, you didn't do anything wrong. And we were in another chat room. So this went from the Law and Crime chat to this other channel of these other people that were reviewing the trials. And we just took over the whole chat room, and everybody was glad to see me. It was just a random people I just met, and we were over here, and we're talking about it over and over. And I remember, and she believes in God, and to give her comfort, I was telling her I'll be praying about the situation. And she got a little bit nervous because she didn't completely understand if there's something more serious going on. And I'm like, okay, I'm telling you that to help you feel better. And it's like you're dealing with, she was like a cat on a hot tin roof. It's like somebody that you cook something on a stove and it's about to go to the sky, to the moon. But everything was resolved. She calmed down, and nothing happened to anybody. And Ashley Bayfield was sentenced for deleting her husband. So, like, for instance, she called her husband over to help her with something, and she shot him. That's not self-defense. The guy may have been kind of messed up, but that's not exactly how you deal with things. It has to be, like, in the moment. And when someone's being abused, it's best to go and report it to the police and not, like, just let it go under the radar until you just explode. So that was some craziness that I was seeing. And then with Brian Steele, he was being held in contempt by the judge for asking about an ex parte meeting that happened. And it's like, so basically, Brian was like, how did this ex parte meeting happening without the client's permission? Because it's like, this witness was being in the judge chambers with the prosecutor, and they're telling him what to say, and he never heard about it. And he wanted to hold him in contempt because he didn't say where he found the information. And he said he'll go in contempt, but he doesn't want to, but he just wants to know why was this happening without his knowledge. And so an attorney was put in prison for doing something with his client. And then these attorneys came out, this organization of attorneys in Georgia stood out with solidarity with the guy. So in protest, these attorneys from all over the place in Georgia stood outside the courthouse. And Ashley Merchant came to defend Brian Steele. And it was a big, crazy thing. It was crazy. The Supreme Court of Georgia let him go. And then they put Judge Page, and they took him off the bench and put Page there. So yeah, and one of my friends, Shaza, she's in Australia, and she's one of my chat friends, and she watched the whole thing. And yeah, she saw the craziness, and I could totally understand what you mean by that, because there's a lot of stuff going on over here. Yeah, my review about this movie, it was very crazy. The Lift was very crazy, and in a very eccentric sense of humor, but it was very good. You know, very suspense and horror and all kinds of funny stuff, like with the chips. I mean, the guy was talking about computer chips over and over again. The chips, the chips, the chips. It was just hilarious. And basically, the whole thing was a funny comedy. Absolutely. Yeah. Fish and chips. That's very good, by the way. This man became a meme. Not the people on the screen, but the guy that kept talking about the chips, he became a meme. It's salty chips, it's potato chips, it's fish and chips, it's hot chips. And he was talking about the chip, the chips, the processors. And it takes place in the Netherlands. It was just so wild about the chat. The chat was awesome. And it's a time period when people were just getting to know about computers and technology. And on the screen, so this is the Terminator 2. It was very good. Robert Patrick, very good actor also. And yeah, he was the guy that played Ray in Walk the Line. And his wife was like, Ray, we ain't selling daddy's piano. He was like, we have to put that piano and sell it. But not true. She didn't want to do that. Yeah, so this movie held up very well over time. You know, and movies these days, they're good, there's good and bad ones, but this movie really held up. I like the poster, so that would be a modern type poster that would have been put there if it came out today, which is always very fascinating to see. And it's very similar, in my opinion, to the concept of the other movie, The Lift, about the AI and the technology or some sort of alien entity going to the point where they do something nefarious. All right, Delight, thank you for hanging out with me. It was nice to see you again. It's been a while since we've seen you in chat. All right, take care. Thank you, Delight. Yeah, and also, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Terminator, and then I will end it, because this was going to be a shorter stream about the other movie. And so, really, it's going to end like in a moment. But so, basically, I'll read a little bit about the Terminator. And Delight, salute. All right. Read about this briefly, and then I'll end the stream. Terminator 2 Judgment Day is a 1991 American science fiction action film directed by James Cameron, who co wrote the script with William Wisher, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, and Robert Patrick. It is the sequel of the Terminator 1984 and the second installment in the Terminator franchise. In the film, the malevolent artificial intelligence Skynet sends the Terminator, a highly advanced deleting machine, back in time to 1995 to delete the future leader of the human resistance, John Connor. When he is a child, the resistance sends back less advanced reprogrammed Terminator to protect Connor and ensure that the future to ensure the future of humanity. The Terminator was considered a significant success, enhancing Schwarzenegger's and Cameron's careers. But work on a sequel stalled because of animosity between the pair. Hemdale Film Corporation, which partially owned the film's rights in 1990, Schwarzenegger and Cameron persuaded Carolaco Pictures to purchase the rights from the Terminator producer Gale and Hurd, sounds like Hurd, and Hemdale, which was financially struggling. A release date was set for the following year, leaving Cameron and Wisher 7 weeks to write the script. Principal photography lasted from October 1990 to March 1991, taking place around Los Angeles. An estimated 94 to 102 million budget, making it the most expensive film made at the time. The advanced visual effects by Industrial Light Magic, which included the first use of computer-generated main character in a blockbuster film, resulted in the schedule overrun. Theatrical prints were not delivered to theaters until the night before the picture's release on July 3, 1991. All right. All right, so. All right. So, shout out to the chat and the chat window. And, all right, so basically, this concludes my review of The Lift. And we had a great time, a great after party with the chat. And shout out to the Crypt Keeper. Thank you for the suggestion. And to you all watching the rerun, I appreciate all of you watching these reruns. This was a surprise stream, and I enjoyed it. And I enjoyed seeing the different friends and stuff in the chat. And all of you, take care and peace. See y'all on the next one.